past few years I've been writing a series of stories, sort of urban fantasy. I call them supernatural noirs or super noirtrals. Matt was pretty good with that actually. Usually it takes people a few months or years to be able to say that word, so he did well.
I've been practicing.
Thanks, buddy. Most of the stories feature this Toronto-based private investigator named Felix Wren. In the last story, I introduced a character who was a real estate agent who only sells haunted properties. So this is a world where just the supernatural, just exists. So I just wondered, if there's haunted houses, someone would have to sell them. And he became sort of a bit of a comic interest. So the stories featuring this character, Jerry Baldwin, they're sort of dark comedies. But this is the very first story that's specifically about Jerry, and Felix, my private investigator, pops up in it. But this is purely a haunted real estate story. As you can tell from the title, possession is 9/10 of the law. Wah, I know. The woman asked Jerry if he knew a good exorcist. Jerry said, "Who is this again?" "Bonnie Page," she said. "You sold us the house in Caledon? On Dewhurst Road? The haunted house?" "Right," Jerry said. He remembered her now. Not because of the house. All the properties he sold were haunted, but because of her name. She had come to his office a year ago, maybe a year and a half, and when she introduced herself, Jerry had responded, "Oh, like Betty Page," which had made her blush and giggle despite the fact that she looked nothing like the pinup queen. Her husband didn't blush, nor did he giggle. As Jerry recalled, the man looked mad enough to chew nails and shit tacks. Oh well, some guys expected you to flirt a bit with their wives, as if it was part of the house buying dance. Others, like Bonnie's husband, acted like you would besmirch their wife's honor if you paid them even the smallest compliment. Jerry couldn't remember the guy's name, which was a problem for a real estate agent, but he couldn't help it. His brain worked best when he could make a connection that led back to sex. He didn't consider this a problem. He wasn't a sex addict like that guy on Californication. It was just the way his brain worked. He was like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. Except in his case, it was more like a dirty mind. "Mr. Baldwin, are you still there?" "Oh, sorry," Jerry said, holding the phone closer. "My mind was elsewhere." He chuckled. Yeah, he thought, lost in the clouds, somewhere in the pornosphere. "We have a problem," Bonnie said. "A very serious problem." "With the house?" No, the house is fine. It's haunted, but it's fine. It's our daughter." Jerry closed his eyes, thinking back. He pictured a 15-year-old girl in a Hello Kitty shirt and those skinny jeans all the kids were wearing these days. Strictly jailbait, but she had looked older, so Jerry had looked longer. And yes, it was coming back to him now. That was the reason the husband had wanted to pound his ass into oatmeal. "Your daughter, Jessica," Jerry said. "Jessica?" "That's right," Bonnie said, managing to sound pleased in spite of her general tone of concern. "She just turned 16 last week. She got her first job teaching swimming lessons at the rec center." Jerry nodded to himself. It was all coming back to him now. The house he had sold to the Pages was located at 47 Dewhurst Road in Caledon. Did it have a pool? No, it had something though. A hot tub? He couldn't remember. There were some woods out back with a creek running through them. A nice place out in the country as long as you didn't care that it was haunted. Jerry couldn't remember the specific details. He'd been doing this for a long time, and after a while all the paranormal nuances started to blend together. "So do you know one?" Bonnie asked. "One what?" Jerry said. "An exorcist for our daughter." "Oh sure," Jerry said. "I can hook you up. Not a problem. We'll have that thing out of her in no time. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it." "Thank you, Mr. Baldwin," Bonnie said, sighing with relief. "I knew we could count on you." Jerry said, "I'll be in touch soon, okay?" Bonnie thanked him and hung up. Jerry turned around in his swivel chair. Possession wasn't common, but it wasn't exactly rare either. It was just another of the many side effects of living in a world next door to a supernatural dimension. Ever since the portals started popping up, all kinds of critters came over from the Blacklands. Some of them annoying, some of them dangerous. Possessors could be one or the other. Jerry wasn't concerned. For every problem the Blacklands had thrown at them, humanity had come up with a solution. Well, mostly. If you had a vampire, you drove a wooden stake through its heart. If you had a werewolf, you shot it with a silver bullet. And if you had a possessor, you got an exorcism. Jerry thought he could probably even do it himself. Demonic possession was like the clogged drain of paranormal problems. Sure, you could call a plumber, but if you had a plunger and a little muscle, you could do the job yourself. Possession was probably a bit more involved than a clogged drain, but really, how hard could it be? Jerry picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Felix," he said. How'd you like to make 50 bucks? Jerry expected, this is sort of an abridged version of the story, so I can read it here. So the story goes actually quite a bit longer, so if it seems a little truncated, that's why. So Jerry expected to see Jessica Page tied to her bed, Linda Blair style, but she wasn't. Maybe I watched too many movies, he thought. The bedroom was empty, the double bed was unmade, the linen half on the floor. There was a bureau, a vanity, and a wardrobe. There had been posters and paintings on the walls, but someone had torn them all down. The posters had been ripped to shreds, while the paintings, one of them a print of Van Gogh's sunflowers, lay scattered on the floor, frames busted and glass facings smashed. We haven't had a chance to clean up yet, Bonnie said. She sounded embarrassed, as if the state of the room was the real issue at hand. Jerry nodded, looking around. So where is... Then he saw the closet door with the straight-back chair wedged under the knob, bracing it closed. He pointed. You put her in the closet? Bonnie nodded a little guiltily. She'd been acting strange all week, moody, kind of sulky. She's always been such a good girl, but the things that came out of her mouth lately... She shook her head ruefully. Sounds like a case of teenage-itis, Jerry thought, but didn't say. It wasn't until today that she started getting violent, Bonnie said. I came upstairs to wake her up. I was worried she was going to be late for her job. She works at the rec center on weekends. Did I tell you that? Jerry nodded. She wouldn't get out of her bed. She told me, her face flushed bright red. I don't want to repeat what she said. Her husband Tom came up behind her and put a comforting hand on her shoulder. I couldn't believe my little girl would say such things. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong with her. She swallowed hard. Tom must have heard her because the next thing I knew, he was in the room. She reacted to him like she'd never seen him before. She attacked him. Tom was able to get a hold of her and he tried to pin her down on the bed, but she threw him off like it was nothing. I was standing right here and I saw her do it. I thought she was going to come after me next, but she just laid there like she had fallen asleep or something. Then she let out the most god-awful scream and everything went flying off the walls. Jess came up off the bed, not so much like she jumped, more like something had pushed her from behind and went straight into the bathroom. She pointed at the ensuite. I thought maybe she was going to try to kill herself, cut her wrists or take pills or something. Tom got up and went after her again. I grabbed her from behind, Tom said, picking up the story. It was like holding a bag full of snakes. She was twisting around so much I could barely hold on to her. He ran a hand down his grizzled cheek, making a rasping sound. I dragged her back into the room and stuck her in the closet. I didn't know what else to do. She started banging on the door and I thought for sure she was going to break right through it. There's no lock on the door, so I stuck that chair under it. After a while, she started to calm down. We tried talking to her through the door, but she wouldn't answer. And we didn't want to let her out, just in case. He trailed off, shaking his head. That's when I called you, Bonnie said to Jerry. You have to help us. Please, Mr. Baldwin, you have to help my little girl. You have to. Her voice wavered and dissolved into sobs. Jerry looked from the pages to the closet door and back again. I promise I'll do everything I can to help your daughter, he said. But in order to do that, I need both of you to wait outside. Tom didn't like that and looked like he was going to argue, but then Bonnie put her hand on his arm and his anger seemed to subside under her gentle grip. She led him out of the room and Felix closed the door gently behind him. Jerry wandered over to one of the windows. The bedroom was at the back of the house and the view looked out on an expanse of rolling lawn that extended to dense woods at the rear of the property. It was late October and the trees were stark and skeletal. Can you perform an exorcism through a closed door? Felix asked. I don't know, Jerry said, turning to face the closet. Never done it before. Never seen it done either, but I would assume so. You'd assume so. Well, as long as the possessor can hear me, it should work, right? Felix stared at him. Are you telling me or are you asking me? I'm just curious to hear your opinion. My opinion. Felix pressed his lips together so tightly they almost disappeared. You want my opinion? I think I should have stayed at home. Jerry nodded, not really listening to him. Yeah, I probably should have Googled that before we left. You said you knew what you were doing. I said I have someone who normally does this for me, but since he's not available, I could probably do it in a pinch, and I stand by that.
They were once known as angels from the sky, but now